Welcome to the Wellness Lab Digest, where we help you to absorb powerful, life-changing insights from top wellness experts with our daily bite-sized wellness podcast summaries. Each episode is packed with distilled, powerful takeaways to boost your health and well-being. To support this podcast, please scroll down on whatever app you're listening. Ratings and reviews are helpful. Even better, just send the show to a friend. Check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page, or simply click the Support the Show link below the episode description.
All right, so we're diving into some holiday health myths today. You guys sent in a ton of articles, but one that really stood out was this: health experts debunk 6 popular myths about holiday habits from Healthline. And I knew we needed to bring in an expert.
Well, you found one. I'm excited to break down some of these myths, especially with all the holidays coming up.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough to stay on track this time of year.
Yeah.
So myth number 1, is holiday stress, unavoidable? I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah, definitely. The holidays can be a little crazy, but stress isn't inevitable. One of the biggest things is sleep. Most adults need 7 to 9 hours, and it makes a huge difference in how you handle stress.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about all the things we usually do to relax? Walks, reading, that kind of stuff. Who has time for that when you're running around like a crazy person?
Actually, those routines are even more important during the holidays. Even just 5 minutes of meditation or a quick walk can really help manage your stress levels. And don't be afraid to set some boundaries. You don't have to say yes to every single thing.
That's a good reminder. Okay, myth number 2, skipping meals to save calories for the big feast. Is that actually a good idea?
That's a tricky one. The research on meal skipping is kind of mixed. Some studies say it's good for your blood sugar and cholesterol, but others show it can make you overeat later. And there was even one study that linked skipping meals to, get this, a higher risk of dying earlier. It's kind of scary, honestly.
Wow. Okay, so maybe not the best strategy.
Probably not. It's more about finding a healthy eating pattern that works for you all year round.
Consistency. Got it. Okay, next up, sodium. This is a big one in my family.
Right?
We all know holiday meals can be pretty salty. But is it really that bad?
Oh, yeah, definitely something to watch out for. Too much sodium can lead to high blood pressure, heart failure, even heart attacks. And you know what's crazy? Sodium hides in a lot of unexpected places. It's not just the obvious stuff like chips and processed food. Bread, sandwiches, even poultry can be loaded with sodium.
Really?
I never would have thought of those.
It's easy to miss those hidden sodium bombs. Okay, so watch out for sodium. Now, what about exercise? It feels like there's just no time to work out during the holidays. Can we just press pause for a few weeks?
I'd say staying active is even more important this time of year. It's not just about burning calories. Exercise helps manage stress, improves your mood, and keeps you healthy overall. And it doesn't have to be anything intense. Walk to a party instead of driving. Play some games with the family. Or even just do some stretches while you're cooking.
Those are great ideas. So simple, but I bet they make a difference. But exercise can't, totally cancel out all the holiday treats, right?
Unfortunately not. You gotta have healthy eating habits, too.
Makes sense. All right, let's move on to something a little more festive. Alcohol. Our article said alcohol sales go way up in December, 37% higher than the rest of the year. So is it really a big deal to indulge a little more during the holidays?
That's a tough one. There's this idea of harmless holiday cheer. But the truth is, the World Health Organization actually came out and said that there's no safe amount of alcohol.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah. So what are the risks if you drink too much?
Well, it can lead to heart disease, high blood pressure, even a type of heart muscle disease called cardiomyopathy, which basically means your heart muscle gets weak and enlarged. Plus, alcohol has a ton of calories, which can lead to weight gain.
Okay, I'm definitely rethinking those holiday cocktails. So what's a good strategy if you want to enjoy the holidays without overdoing it?
Moderation is key. Maybe limit yourself to 1 drink. And then switch to something non-alcoholic, like
Cool.
sparkling water with some festive flavors.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
All right, last myth for today. Sleep. We all tell ourselves we'll catch up on sleep after the holidays. But is that really a good idea?
Well, it's tempting to think we can bank sleep, but it doesn't really work that way. Sleep is super important for our bodies to repair themselves. When we don't get enough, we're basically running on empty, which can lead to more stress, bad decisions, and even a weaker immune system.
So basically, skimping on sleep is a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much. And if you don't get enough sleep consistently, it can increase your risk of serious health problems down the line, like heart disease, stroke, obesity, and even dementia.
Wow, I had no idea it was that serious.
Sleep is not something to mess around with.
Okay, we've debunked 6 common holiday health myths. That was a lot of info. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have one more question for you.
Sure, fire away.
Of all the myths we talked about, which one surprised you the most?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, it was the one about skipping meals. It seems so logical to save up calories for the big feast, but the research really suggests it's not a great idea.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap, especially during the holidays.
It's a good reminder that intuitive eating is more sustainable in the long run.
So true. What about you? What's one small change you can make this holiday season to prioritize your well-being?
Let me think. I think I'm going to really focus on getting enough sleep this year. My sleep schedule always gets messed up during the holidays, but this year I'm determined to stick to a consistent bedtime, even with all the parties and events.
I love that. Sleep is such a game changer. What about you? Any small changes you're thinking about?
Yeah, I'm going to work on setting boundaries. I tend to overcommit myself during the holidays, which always leads to stress and burnout. So this year, I'm going to be more mindful about saying no to things that don't align with my priorities.
I think that's a great goal.
It's important to remember that self-care isn't selfish, especially during a busy time like this.
Absolutely. Now, for our listeners out there, we want to hear from you. Which myth surprised you the most? And what's one small change you can make this holiday season to prioritize your well-being? Share your thoughts on social media, and let's keep this conversation going.
I always love hearing from our listeners. It helps us create a sense of community and learn from each other's experiences.
Speaking of community, the holidays are all about connecting with loved ones. And while it's important to prioritize our own well-being, we can also help our friends and family stay healthy during this time.
Oh, for sure. We can encourage each other to make healthy choices without being pushy or judgmental. Like, instead of bringing a super salty dish to a potluck, maybe try a healthier version. Or suggest an activity that involves movement, like a family walk or a game.
I love those ideas. It's all about finding creative ways to incorporate healthy habits into our holiday traditions. And remember, the holidays are meant to be enjoyed. Don't let the pressure of being perfectly healthy suck the fun out of it.
Exactly. It's all about balance and finding what works best for you.
Well said. So as we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive, let's raise a toast to a happy and healthy holiday season.
Cheers to that.
All right, so we covered a lot of ground in part 1, but before we jump into the rest of those holiday health myths, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about those hidden sources of sodium, like bread and poultry. That was kind of a surprise to me. I always thought of sodium as being mostly in processed foods and salty snacks.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook those everyday foods, but they can really add up, especially if you're not paying attention to the labels.
So what are some tips for keeping our sodium intake in check during the holidays?
Well, one thing you can do is look for lower sodium versions of your favorite foods. A lot of brands offer those now. And when you're cooking at home, try using herbs and spices to flavor your food instead of salt.
Those are great tips. I'm definitely going to be more mindful of sodium this year. Now, let's get back to those holiday health myths. We left off with sleep, and the myth that we can just catch up on sleep after the holidays are over.
Right, that's a common one, but unfortunately it's not really true. Sleep isn't like a bank account. You can't just withdraw and deposit sleep whenever you want.
So what happens when we don't get enough sleep?
Well, in the short term, you might feel tired and sluggish, have trouble concentrating, and be more irritable. But over time, chronic sleep deprivation can lead to some serious health problems. Like I mentioned before, heart disease, stroke, obesity, and even dementia.
That's pretty scary. So how much sleep should we be aiming for during the holidays?
The general recommendation is still 7 to 9 hours for most adults, but even if you can't get that much, try to be as consistent as possible with your sleep schedule. Go to bed and wake up around the same time each day, even on weekends. That will help regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle.
Good advice. I know I'm guilty of staying up late and sleeping in during the holidays, but I'm going to try to be more mindful of my sleep this year.
It's definitely worth it. Sleep is one of the best things you can do for your health.
Okay, so we've debunked a few more holiday health myths, but I think it's important to remember that the holidays are a time for celebration and enjoyment. We don't want to get so caught up in being healthy that we forget to have fun.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance. Enjoy the treats and festivities, but also make time for self-care and healthy habits.
Well said. All right, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive into holiday health myths. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll wrap up our discussion and share some final tips for a happy and healthy holiday season. So we've spent a lot of time busting those holiday health myths. But I think it's important to remember that the holidays are about more than just staying healthy. They're about connecting with loved ones and creating memories.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in the pressure of making perfect choices, but sometimes the best memories are made when we let loose a little.
Right, like that time I tried to make a vegan gingerbread house, and it completely collapsed. But we all laughed so hard it became a family story we still tell to this day.
That's what it's all about, finding joy in the imperfections.
So maybe the takeaway here isn't about being perfectly healthy during the holidays. Maybe it's about finding a balance.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's not about deprivation. It's about making conscious choices and being kind to yourself.
And remember what truly matters.
Connection, laughter, and those special moments that make the holidays so unique.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive into holiday health myths, I want to leave you with this thought. Embrace the spirit of the season. Enjoy the festivities. But don't forget to take care of yourselves.
And each other.
Exactly. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Lab Digest. If you have received value from the podcast, I have 3 asks of you. 1, share the show with your friends and send them a link to the show. 2, please leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening. And last but not least, please let me know what topics you would like us to cover in the future. You can contact me by sending me a message using the Send Us a Text link below the episode description.